Good morning, everyone. I'm Greg Dearden, Project Director here at DigiConnect. I'm happy to welcome you to day 2 of Digital Transformation Jordan DigiConference. We had a great inspirational day yesterday, full of rich content and great interactivity from the audience, with speakers from the Ministry of Digital Economy and Entrepreneurship, Airport International Group, the Telecommunication Regulatory Commission, and EY, just to name a few. We covered topics ranging from Jordan's digital transformation roadmap to emerging next-gen tech. A quick thank you to our event partners, without whom this event wouldn't be possible. So thank you to our diamond sponsors, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, JDS, and SMS. Our platinum sponsors, Dell Technologies, our official digital transformation partner, STS, our gold sponsors, Nutanix, Oracle, Thales, SAP, and Cipher Learning, our silver sponsors, Manage Engine and Informatica, and our bronze sponsor, Infoblox. Before we get started, I just want to go for some quick housekeeping. Please do keep your cameras on if possible during the conference. All attendee microphones are muted for decorum during the discussion. If you do lose connection for any reason, please use the same link you were sent to rejoin. And finally, we encourage lots of participation from the audience, so please use the chat box or raise a hand option to ask questions to our speakers. So a quick look at our agenda for today. We start with a panel discussion focusing on the future of finance and digital transformation and digital inclusion. This is followed by a keynote from EY on smart government. We also have another innovation technology session, which is followed by a final panel discussion on digitizing the customer experience and next generation e-services. We finish off with an industry insight on automating operations with the use of digital transformation trends, which is followed by our iPad lottery draw. So do make sure you're here at the end of the conference to be within the chance of winning, as you have to be online when we make the draw and I call your name. So let's get started. I'd like to introduce Ricci Santos Diaz, who will be moderating our first panel. Ricci Santos Diaz is an economic development advisor who has worked with various governments and multinationals in the management consulting space. He also comments about it regularly in the media. He is currently head of the Middle East and Africa for the FinTech Power 50 and the FinTech Times, as well as senior advisor and director for the corporate group, amongst other roles. Ricci, over to you.
Thank you so much, Greg. And welcome everybody to today's panel, Financial Inclusion and the Digital Economy. As Greg mentioned, my name is Ricci Santos Diaz, and I will be the moderator and host for today's session, as you can see from the nice chair in my background. So I'm looking forward to today's session in terms of getting the audience as well engaged, as well as this lovely group of panelists that I have today. So before we get started, what I want to do is give a brief introduction to each of them. So who will be joining me today on the panel on this topic of financial inclusion and the digital economy? We first have Solomon Verona, who is a senior advisor and the head of the Union of Arab Banks Digital. Solomon, do you want to quickly elaborate on your career? And it's good to have you on the panel today.
Thank you very much, Ricci, for the nice intro. Good morning, everyone. Greetings all the way from Beirut to Jordan, to everyone who's attending today, and thank you very much for having me on this great panel. Looking forward to contributing to the conversation and with our thoughts and insights. So my name is Sulaiman Barada. I lead the digital transformation arm of the Union of Arab Banks, UAB, mainly UAB Digital. UAB Digital is a unit that was established a year and a half ago in April 2020 with a mandate to leaving no financial institution behind as the sector transitions into the digital economy. Why it was established? Because we saw across the Middle East various institutions moving at various speeds. So and I was lucky to be given the mandate to execute on that objective. I've been in the solution space for over 20 years, and with 8 years in Saudi, 5 years in Kuwait, and a few years on and off in UAE and other places, and obviously a couple of years also of my career in Lebanon. Over to you, back to you, Ricci.
as I guess you would say in Lebanon, shukran, merci, thank you.
all three of them.
All three languages in one go, right? So thank you so much, Solomon. Good to have you again. So next I want to introduce Tariq Al-Rifai. He's the sales manager at SAP and is also a Jordanian and covering the region over there. Tariq, do you want to quickly elaborate about your career and who you are?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Ricci. Thank you, audience. Thank you for having us today with you. Actually, yes, my name is Tariq Al-Rifai. I'm SAP sales manager and country lead for Jordan. I'm based also in Jordan, covering the operations of Jordan and Palestine as well. I have in total 19 years of experience in technical, in computer, let's say, science in general, in different sectors. I was also, before joining SAP, this is my second year in SAP, I was leading the applications in Jordan for 7 years with Oracle Jordan. So yeah, this is in high level, my summary in a nutshell.
Thank you, Tariq, and it's definitely an impressive career, so good to have you on the panel today. And last but not least, if Ahmed Arghawal is here. Ahmed Arghawal is the Director for Regulatory Driven Transformation at Kpmg. Ahmed, do you want to elaborate and introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, sure, Ricci. Yeah, this is Ahmed Arghawal. I'm part of the Kpmg Singapore. I've been in the industry from last more than 20 years now. So I've been working across the banks. You name the bank like Citi, across the banks on different topics. So my interest is mainly on the digital driven transformation. That's something which is of my interest, and that's why I'm looking forward for having a conversation with you guys to share what I know of. Thank you.
And thank you so much for joining us, Ahmed. And for those tuning in, so before I kick off the panel, I'm going to be asking, obviously, the panelists a bunch of questions, nice little discussion here. And please do, throughout the discussion, send your questions our way. And throughout the session, I will try to address those when appropriate. So if you have any questions for the panelists throughout the session, please send it across, and we will try to accommodate that as we go along in the panel discussion. So right, so coming from all the way from Jordan, from Lebanon, from Singapore, and me in Dubai, and then obviously from those tuning in from wherever you are, I want to kick off the panel. So my first question to the panelists here is, for those that are tuning in that are not from Jordan, right? There's a lot of Jordanians here, but there's also a lot that are not. How can you describe the wider economic development and diversification, in particular with digital economic diversification and development, that's happening in the Kingdom of Jordan? Let's start off with the Jordanian in the panel. Do you want to give us a bit of background, Tariq, in terms of where do you kind of see that?
Sure, thank you, Ricci. As you know, Jordan has always considered the digital transformation as a top priority in its national agenda. It is also known to everybody that His Majesty King Abdullah II had this in mind since taking the throne, and wanted Jordan to be a leader in the region in terms of becoming a technology hub and digitization center. So in the past 20 plus years, I believe we have achieved a lot in this regard. Yet there's still some work to be done, especially on the public sector side. But still, it's progressing. Now, also in Jordan, as a Jordanian, to give you an idea, we have in Jordan a Ministry for Digital Economy. With a team led by Mr. Al-Hananda. They are an innovative team. They are having all the time having new ideas to support this sector and to support the innovations worldwide. Also, beside that, I believe that we have also in Jordan, also we have another institution called National Digital Transformation Council, who oversees the strategy and the implementation of digital transformation initiatives across the country. I believe also that we are somehow lagging behind compared to other countries in the region. Again, in particular, to public sector services, we are yet confident that we can bridge this gap quickly, since we have the required talents, we have the required resources. And I strongly believe in my person that increasing the digital consumption and adoption, this is a very important thing that we must adopt now. And promoting also the digitization of private and public services in general, and build also on the digital transfer infrastructure and the skills that we already have and possess now. So yeah, we are a country that is that's ready really to innovate and to move to the next level of technology in general.
Excellent, thank you for that. I mean, now I want to get to Solomon. You know, Solomon, you're also a next door neighbor, if you will, in terms of Jordan. So you obviously have, and with the Union of Arab Banks and your kind of hat, you see a lot of things happening across the Arab world and beyond. But particularly, do you see, obviously, we kind of know for the most part, but do you see similar trends in Jordan? Does Jordan have something that's a bit different in terms of what else is happening in the region? I mean, in terms of this kind of economic development and diversification, in particular with digital transformation?
Sure. A very, very important question, Ricci. And to start with regards to Jordan and how Jordan has decided to embark on the digital economy development journey, the very good sign that Jordan sent to the neighboring countries and to the world is when they established the Digital Economy Ministry. Because you know, digital economy is not a technology pursuit. It's not a digital pursuit. It's a socio-economic pursuit that impacts at large the country's existence, competitive advantage, and growth, and you know, an aspirations agenda. So while transitioning into the digital economy and from the conventional economy, the key word here is institutionalization. How would you institutionalize the effort so that the energy, investments, and efforts and everything that's put into this pursuit is actually going to lead to the right to the desired outcomes? And I think the case of Jordan with the establishment of the Digital Economy Ministry is an important first step towards proper institutionalization of efforts around the digital economy and digital economic development activities. From other countries in the region, I think they're still lacking. Really, the weakest spot around the digital economy is not the intentions. It's actually the sustainability of those efforts and those and the translation of those intentions into initiatives that could deliver on the mandate. And I do see a huge gap in institutionalization in various geographies, in the majority of the Arab countries, to be honest. And only a few countries have established the right disciplines around the digital economy thinking, and also strategy, and moving from strategy to execution. There's still everybody's on the learning curve, and I think this panel is one good conversation that could extend some learnings from one country to another. Particularly, we look at it from why at the Union of Arab Banks that's of an important that's paramount to us, because digital economy is multi disciplinary, cross-sector. So it's a whole country's economy moving and transitioning from old ways of doing things to new ways of doing things, right? And it's the emergence of new business models. It's the emergence of new governance models, not only business models for the commercial sector, but also governance models for governments. And that's what we used to call e-governance in the region. So it's really cross-sectoral, and I will stop here. Happy to elaborate further during the conversation, Ricci.
Excellent, thank you, Solomon. And then, so lessons learned, right? In terms of from a non-Arab point of view now, from a more global standpoint, I want to land to Singapore here. So Ahmed, what has been kind of has it been similar globally? Has it been something unique? Because obviously the Arab world as a whole, and even Jordan in its own right, has its own unique challenges. But from a global perspective, Ahmed, have you had any, in terms of this topic of economic development and digital economic development as a whole, what are kind of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thanks, Ricci. I think the world is going to become more and more digital. I think that's the way the world is moving as of now. I never been to Jordan. I have no idea about the Jordan. Sorry, guys. I will not have anything specific for the local country. But I've been to Middle East. I've been there, like Qatar and Dubai, been there, but never been to Jordan. But the way I'm seeing is that the world is going to move to digital. Like we are going to talk about digital currencies. I'm not sure how much you guys are following Singapore. Like in Singapore, they have a functionality called Pay Now, which basically means that I can transfer any amount to any bank within Singapore. For example, I have one of the local banks called DBS, and I have another local bank called UOB. And if I need to transfer from DBS to UOB to any account, I can do it in 2 seconds. Okay. Now, in last maybe quarter or so, what they have done is the regulator has extended that functionality to other countries. So what it means is now Pay Now is being connected to Thailand. So that means if I have an account in Thailand, or I have a friend in Thailand, or I have a colleague in Thailand, I can transfer it using Pay Now, which is which can be transferred like instantly. And there was a news in 3 days back that Pay Now will be connected to UPI in India, which means that which will be available by July 2022, which means that I can pay to any bank, any account numbers within India by sitting in Singapore. Okay, so that's where the world is moving, right? We already talking about like going away from the physical currency. They're talking about cryptocurrencies, digital currencies, and I think there are a lot of regulators at this moment of time, as we speak, are working hard to come out with the regulations. But digital tokens, digital currencies, is the way the world is moving. So it's just a matter of time that it might happen that Singapore might be taking 4 steps, but Jordan might take 3 or 4 or 3.5. It's just a matter of time. But over a period of, if I go to talk about 5 years, 10 years down the line, everything will become digital.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So I want to ask another question now for the panel is, how do you explain the rise and the role that fintech is playing in the ecosystem? So, obviously various experts have talked about it in terms of the rise of fintech as a whole globally. Singapore is a great example of that from a global standpoint, London, Hong Kong, New York. But in this region, there's also a growing trend and rise in that. So I mean, going back to the regional point of view, first of all, Solomon, do you want to elaborate quickly on that role and rise of fintech as in the Middle East as a whole? Sure. And then maybe you could relate to Jordan. Sure.
There are 2 angles to it, Ricci, when it comes to the fintech developments that we have seen and witnessed over the last 5-ish years, right? So it all boils down to the motivation as to why these developments have already had started in various countries and geographies. And the motivation for one country might totally differ from the other country. What was common though is opening the space for entrepreneurs and new business owners and founders, new business founders, to thrive. Really, because one key characteristic of the digital economy, Ricci, is that it's a moment in time in our history that offers equal opportunity to everyone on Earth, really, to innovate and grow. And I think that is why countries who are less privileged are actually moving at higher speeds than than others. Why? Because they want to grab this opportunity, and it's real, and it's material, right? It's significant. So so the speed at which countries were progressing were actually driven by their socioeconomic motivation. So that is one angle to it, which is opening the space for fintechs and for entrepreneurs and new and business founders to thrive, to innovate and thrive and participate in the growth of the local digital economy in which these companies and enterprises were actually established. And that's why at the very beginning, we actually saw, and maybe throughout, not only at the very beginning, it actually continued up until very recently, and some of that is still happening. We saw some sort of a competition in the region in terms of onboarding entrepreneurs and offering them the best acceleration packages, right? The best incubation packages. So we saw competition. We saw VCs competing over entrepreneurs and startups. We saw fintech hubs also competing over creating the best spaces and so forth, so on. Now, luckily, this has already passed. So the hype cycle of doing fintechs for the sake of innovating and creating companies, no matter what. I must say some of that was no matter what. Okay, is now coming to an end, and now from now on there is more thoughtfulness that's being put into the establishment of these new enterprises. And why do we see that positive at our end? Because we sit at the demand end of the ecosystem, right? As a union of Arab banks representing 300 plus commercial and investment banks in the region, we see that movement and that transition from creating fintechs for the sake of creating fintechs to creating fintechs to meet the demand of the incumbent banks, and also what we have started to see, and I think this is a point that we would want maybe to cover next in the conversation, is the partnerships that are starting to exist and establish between the fintechs and the banks is actually what we have been waiting for to happen in our region. So the developments that have happened over the last years were very good in terms of really providing a boost of and creating some sort of competitiveness in the region, and also the jealousy of wanting to be in the space. Also the awareness of around fintech becoming a career path, and also a venture that newcomers into the world of business would actually want to pursue. So these are all really good signs and good already good foundational elements that we can build upon for a more sustainable fintech dynamics into the future. So what we have seen so far is not necessarily the best version of the fintech dynamics. What we are starting to see now, and the shift from the shift that we are starting to see now is sending a lot of good messages for a sustainable ecosystem towards moving to the future.
Excellent. So Tariq, do you have anything you want to add to that? I mean, obviously more from a nation point of view, like Jordan specifically, or just other thoughts you have. Do you agree with Solomon? Do you have a different opinion?
Yeah, actually, yes, I do agree with Sulaiman, and also I strongly believe that Jordan has great potential for fintech growth. This is due number of let's say factors or facts that we have a huge sector or huge, let's say, population from young demographic, tech-savvy population, the high smartphone usage in Jordan, and the high internet spread, and also the availability. So I believe that we have the main factors that would take Jordan to the next level of fintechs and succeed with the fintech technologies. Now also, this is also supported with the awareness from government as a regulatory body. We have, let's say, and let's say we are moving in a good way with our regulatory body for the regulations. And as you know, fintechs would operate better and faster if regulations help. And I see this area getting the needed attention recently from government. I'll give you an example. Central Bank of Jordan has established a fintech sandbox, acting as an incubator for fintech innovators. And this is also shows how the country is ready, and the government is providing these tools to companies and the innovators. Also, on the non-governmental side, there is a lot of innovation hubs and accelerators. Also, we see things moving in the right direction. Another important thing that access to fund is becoming easier, and there are many initiatives and acceleration projects doing tremendous work as we speak now. Also, if I may add also that banks in Jordan, they are innovative as well. We are having a good banking, let's say, innovators. They have accelerated their innovation by launching a really cutting-edge digital banking solutions into local market. So this also added a lot of value to the companies that can work with the bank to provide innovations. Also in line with the e-commerce growth, local payment and many transfer companies, they are really doing well considering also the e-commerce growth in Jordan.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And you're right, with the young population, a tech savvy population, for example, I was told that, because obviously I'm not Arab and I'm still fairly new to this region compared to you guys because you're from here, is actually some of the best programmers are Jordanian. But that was a Jordanian who told me that, so I don't know if that's true.
No, I can second,
he was a bit biased.
I can second that.
Yeah,
I can certainly second that, Ricci.
But it's a highly educated, young, aspirational population, absolutely, and it's getting support from the top. I have a question from the audience, and I think Ahmed,
if you allow me to elaborate further and to on Tariq's point of view, and with regards to Jordan, really, the fact that a country is starting a bit later than others within the fintech space, given the nature of progress that was made in the last 5 years, I'm being very cautious with choosing the words, okay, is not bad to start that late, right? Why? Because there has been too much learnings that could be applied on the Jordan's path to fintech and the growth of fintech moving forward. So I'm seeing this as very positive, thing for Jordan, and I'm definitely like any other, maybe like a lot of the people in the Arab region, I'm very much looking forward to seeing Jordan becoming a talent pool and an innovator, a fintech innovator with regional reach in terms of supply. We are already working with the Central Bank of Jordan to further strengthen that position, and we are also working with our member banks in Jordan for them to become leaders within the space and early movers within the spaces, because we believe that countries like Jordan has always been on the supply side of talents to other countries, either be it regionally or even globally. And we would like to work hand in hand with all the stakeholders in Jordan to further reinforce that position.
Thanks, and and thank you for the comments, by the way, for those sending it across, like hubs with economic development, things like that. So there was a question I wanted to address to Ahmed actually, and it ties into what you were just saying just now in terms of obviously with different levels of economic growth amongst the world, right? So Ahmed, so here's a question from the audience was, can the digital economy succeed in countries that suffer from income differences across society? And how will it contribute to lower poverty rates in less developed countries? I mean, Ahmed, you've seen it from obviously you're based in Singapore, which is obviously an advanced economy. But following it from other parts where it's not so much advanced, what are your thoughts on that from the question?
I think that's a very good example of fintech. I think that's where the fintech plays very important role in those economies, because if you're going to talk about the banks and government, they always carry their own own history and own rules and regulations they need to follow. Fintech is very fun. They can work anywhere and they can resolve a lot of issues. I think if I am correctly, there is in Africa there is a fintech vendor called Cash or something, or Mash or something like that. I don't remember the name, but what happens in Africa, for example, is that they lot of large banks do the work, but they're not in rural areas, and that becomes a challenge for rural banks, rural people to transfer the money. So they have built a functionality. There's a fintech vendor with a functionality where you can transfer the money using mobile phone. That's the only thing which you need. Which the way it's helping is even in rural villages they can transfer the cash and they can transfer the payments. It is not necessary that I need to have a branch in the local branch in the local village. So I think that's one of very good examples of fintech where you all the boundaries are being trashed and they are talk about what is the problem statement and this is the solution. And that's the way that's the way it is. And just to add with your earlier question, I think the world is going to move is, can the fintech and banks work together in one ecosystem? And that's where the need of the hour is. Individually, it's going to be a little bit harder, but if they can work together and work more from the what is the end statement you want to reach, and I think if that can be done, I think that will innovate and that will speed up the digitalization. That's the way I think.
Yeah, thank you. And then basically just to sum up what you said, so obviously, Africa is a very good example of this, where a lot of mobile usage is actually really high. And it's just many have to rely, and these technologies, such as in many parts of Africa, are using solutions to help better their lives, from remittances, right, to just payments and other things. And kind of going to the Jordan, so with that topic, because obviously, in respect to the Middle East, obviously Jordan is a different level of compared to other affluence from other parts of the Middle East. But Tariq, in regards to, because obviously with Jordan, there's still a significant population, a proportion of Jordanians who are still unbanked and are still excluded from the likes of financial services, insurance, e-commerce, to name a few, right? So how can fintech and other just digital solutions help? So tying into Ahmed, who said, gave the example of Africa, where there's been some solutions of fintechs with people's everyday lives. How does that actually how can that come into play in a country like Jordan as well, where there's still a significant amount of the population that is yet to still be, unbanked, uninsured, and still is relying on day-to-day cash transactions? How can fintech or just any digital solution help combat that?
Yeah, actually, Ricci, I believe this is a universal issue and should be everyone's priority, in my opinion. Globally today, about 1.7 billion adults remain unbanked without an account at a bank or through a mobile money provider. While this is a big issue in developing countries, the developed world also has its own share with this unbanked, let's say, population. In the US, if you imagine that they have 40 million Americans that they are still unbanked. So this is, I see it as a universal, it is a universal issue, not related to any country. So today in Jordan, if we take Jordan as example, the Ministry of Digital Economy is working along with the central bank and other government bodies to expand the financial inclusion in the kingdom. This includes increasing the adaptation of digital payments in both private and public sectors, and we are having so many use cases or successful use cases in Jordan in this domain. Also, the strong e-payment capabilities are serving as infrastructure for introducing new financial technologies within areas like money transfer, like insurance, and others, etc. And I believe that as the market becomes more mature and technology adoption more mature and technology adoption increases, we will see more advanced fintech solutions like artificial intelligence related services, the AI, and much more innovations here.
Excellent, thanks. And Solomon, you know, because it was your fault because you mentioned partnerships earlier with so give me an idea, you know, kind of this theme of going from Ahmed to Tariq, you know, so Ahmed talked about you know, giving Africa as an example, and I mentioned, oh, you know, it's obviously there are, and it's a good point that in the developed world there are still, it's a global challenge, right? And then going to what you were saying earlier about partnerships, do you have any like an example maybe in your head in terms of maybe where this has helped, you know, from the Arab world as a whole, like where this, or even globally, where this actually has worked well in tech, helping find a solution to something, and specifically around the inclusion and exclusion kind of debate, if you have any off the top of your head.
Before getting into the example, let me state the you know, the phenomenon that we're seeing very clearly, right? About and around partnership and the fintech developments that's happening in various countries. In the recent past, we used to measure the maturity of a local market with regards to fintech developments by the number of fintechs that graduate, you know, through accelerators and hubs, by the quantity of these companies. I think moving forward, because the outcomes weren't very pleasant in terms of the impact and realizing higher inclusion, because we had inclusion percentages very low before these fintech developments 5 years ago, and we still have these numbers, and these percentages haven't moved a lot, Ricci, right? You know that. You've seen, you've analyzed already the current state in the region, and you know that the numbers on inclusion have not moved a lot, and the needle hasn't really moved a lot in the last 5 years, despite the number of innovations and fintechs that have grown in the region in the last in that time period. But moving forward, I think the maturity of a market from a fintech's development point of view is going to be measured by not by the number of startups that they can accelerate, or the number of fintechs that they can actually incubate and grow, but rather by clear impact indicators, socioeconomic impact indicators, and and also by the ability of working not only with the banking sector. So it's not only the banking sector that fintechs and fintechs that have not been in good terms, right, in the past period of time. It's really that every sector has always been so much close to their own affairs forever, right? And that is something that used to apply to the conventional economy, and it was okay. So so what we're seeing today is being necessitated by the nature of the digital economy. The digital economy, in the digital economy, you can't have a place and grow and thrive on your own. Being working in a closed community, in a closed industry, is no longer a valid industry model. So every industry will have to open up to other industries so they can together think of new value propositions that they can together deliver to the end constituents. That is the overarching principle in the digital economy. And applying that overarching principle on the fintech and the incumbents and the banking sector's dynamics, it is now very much necessary for the greater good, for the good of both communities, of both sectors, and for the greater good of the societies and the economies in which these companies and banks operate, to achieve higher inclusion and also to deliver on other goals of the sustainable development goals, Ricci. They have to work together. We all have to work together. Banks will have to work with not only with fintechs, with healthcare providers. They have to work with retail providers. We have to work with telcos. So we're still seeing some resistance for a lot of industries to depart or deviate from their ever, in place industry model. But breakthroughs are starting to happen. Breakthroughs have happened already in the world, where fintechs, where we see the best fintechs, in the world being either getting into joint ventures with banks, and we're seeing big banks in the world playing within the fintech space already, like Morgan Stanley and some other really large banks in the world, stepping into the fintech space, not to step on the toes of the fintech startups, but rather to meet them at a place where they can jointly work together for a multiplier of the value of their individual interests, Ricci. So there are several examples that have already happened globally. The examples from the region are still shy. I think we still haven't seen enough JVs and acquisitions happening within the space. What we're seeing today is conversations that are progressing, and also a sign of that indicates that both communities are already convinced that they need to work together. We haven't seen the fruit of that yet, but I think that's gonna start to happen in 2022 onwards.
Thank you. So I'm aware of time. So audience, if you have any question, I might be able to squeeze it in. I have a few more I wanted to ask the panel here, but feel free to send that across if you have any. And I just wanted to ask the panelists now, going back to this discussion, is from Ahmed, quickly from a global point of view, just kind of this theme of inclusion and even fintech, or what has kind of been gaps and challenges that is still prevalent across the globe, where it can be of interest for the audience to understand? Just very kind of key points, or a key point at least.
I think so. I think this more in terms of understanding each other, I guess. Mm-hmm. And what I mean is, like, for example, can fintech work with the banks in a same place? And that's something can be difficult and can be easy depending on if you start putting the boundaries there. Mm-hmm. And even the role of a bank going to change a lot, because a lot of the work which currently banks are doing, that will be done by a fintech vendor. So just to give you an example, is that in next the way we are seeing the things next 10 to 20 years, the trust is there in the banks, but we'll be relying. If I need to do a normal work on the banks, I may or may not come to the bank, because there will be a lot of other things which I can maybe, for example, if I need to do any payments, I don't need to go to bank. I can use either Revolut or Google Pay. I don't need to go to bank, right? But there's a trust in the bank. So the bank need to step up and do a more role for the banks. Some of the trends which I've been seeing here, for example, is like local banks have got their own marketplace, where if I need to buy a mobile plan, I can go to bank. If I need to buy a mobile, if, for example, like one of the local banks here, DBS, has a tie-up with Apple. So I can, on the DBS marketplace, I can buy Apple products. I can subscribe to my electricity bill. I can subscribe to my mobile. I can buy health plans, which is on the DBS world, which is the local bank's world. I think that's where the thing is. Then can you step up and start putting the boundary lines and saying, okay, this is my world, this is your world, and let's work together. Like that sort of a thing need to be there. But I think there's a little bit of hesitation, saying that banks think that my world, my money is going to be eaten by fintech world, and fintech world is thinking that my world part going to be done by the banks. You guys need to come come across the table, start talking it up. And that's where the regulation comes to picture. Can regulation support them? Like, for example, here, I don't know whether it's been there in other countries, but here, for example, if you're going to take any new initiative, MS funds you provide you the support. Like MS, okay, you come out with the idea, tell me what are you trying to do, what business problem you're trying to solve. If you need some money, I'll give it to you the money. But go on,
sorry to interrupt. MAS, by the way, for the audience, is Monetary Authority of Singapore.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah. Monetary Authority of Singapore. So, if, for example, a local bank here, they want to go with a AI-based solution, right? They can reach out to the MAS and ask them, okay, MAS, I'm going to innovate my entire process, and I want to go with like using AI tool. Can you help me out in funding up? The bank will, then MAS will understand the proposal, what they're trying to resolve, and MAS might say that, okay, I'll give you 40% of the funding. Okay, remaining funding you need to do it. But at least there's some support coming in from the MAS, right? From the regulator or from the government. That helps. Then the bank can work with the fintech vendor and start coming out with a solution. So these initiatives do help. Like, can you have the regulations which will make the world for the fintech world easier, right? And can this survive? So I think it is a basically collective effort coming from the banks, from the fintech, from the regulator, from the government bodies, so that they can thrive and they can survive. Because the fintech, one of the challenges they always have is they will have a very nice idea, but they may not have funds. They may not have connect. They may not have the industry insights. So you need support on these things. So if you start getting that support, and then everything will start moving on. These are the few hiccups have been there, which we as a one community, one ecosystem need to work together and start marching towards it. And if we take it collective step, you're gonna see the difference.
Thank you for that. So now I'm gonna march. Solomon, go ahead.
There's a comment by Hadil on the chat.
I was just going to read that out loud. I think it would be good for somebody to address it. So Solomon, go ahead.
Yeah. It really intrigued me, and I had in mind to clarify on the whole notion of impact fintech or social fintech and all of that. So, and that also relates to my previous comment on the global growth of fintech and the partnerships between banks and fintech. And by the way, one great example of a new fintech that's founded by banks is R3, playing big on CBDC globally. The founders of that company are banks. So that's just a note on the side. And so many of these examples are happening. But going back to the social fintech and impact fintech and that category that we have now coined, right? In my point of view, every fintech, every commercial enterprise in the digital economy has to be an impact commercial enterprise. Has to relate and embed one way or the other in their business model by design some sort of impact orientation. Because if not, their business model is gonna go and become irrelevant at one point in time in the future. The Sustainable Development Goals is not a pursuit of evangelism. It's actually a market direction, a commercial. It provides guidelines and directions for nations to go back on their feet and thrive and develop their economies and societies. But that is on one hand. Okay, that's the social cause aspect of it. But there is also the reflection of that into the commercial world. And we have been hearing and seeing in practice how much large enterprises worldwide are starting to talk in the boardroom on establishing the right balance between purpose and profit. Right, not to forget the ESG investment movement also that has picked up, and ESG is becoming mainstream with regards to the investment ecosystem globally. So, in my opinion, every fintech, and my advice really to any new fintech that's gonna come to birth, in the near future or later, is that they embed in their business model some impact orientation that will help fulfill one or two or more of the sustainable development goals. Take the sustainable development goals into consideration while innovating your products and services. Make sure that your product and service is inclusive by design, reduces poverty by design, and allow this to become in your DNA, in the DNA of your company, so that your chances of scaling into other markets, not only into the region, but also into other markets globally, could become higher, and then you could become the next unicorn.
Thanks. So Tariq, you've been nodding your head, and I'm aware of time. So Tariq, do you want to add to that? And also, I wanted to say as well, like as a Jordanian, also obviously being in Jordan, some of these, which in addition to any comments you wanted to add in terms of other points of view might have in terms of the gaps and challenges that still need to be addressed in terms of this wider topic. Anything, the throne is yours, basically. So feel free to throw it away.
Yeah, actually, I think in Jordan, we are somehow, as we said before, we are ready. For example, for the security and the other related areas. In Jordan, I give an example. We started, or the banks started adopting the cloud solutions since 2014. So at that time, I remember the security was a big issue for them. They couldn't understand how to deal with the cloud at that time. Now, after 6 or 7 years, for the same example of the banks, they are having their own policies because they lesson learned. They have so many best practice. They have done a lot of knowledge add to these solutions and cloud innovations. So, from security, let's say, or adaptation side, I think we are ready. We don't have these gaps in adopting the technologies. This is as far as my knowledge so far. Yeah.
Excellent. And then there was a comment, it might be relevant to you because you touched upon it already briefly, but from my side, infrastructure stability, effectiveness on the digital economy success, such as internet services in the region, financial application protection tools that make this satisfactory for the service recipient and customer's expectation. Anything, Tariq, you wanted to add to that before I conclude?
Yeah, actually, I believe also I can add a very, very small thing that I believe big fintech startups have a great deal to offer to each other. Yeah, banks have a large customer base, stable infrastructure, asset and regulatory know-how. Startups provide an out-of-the-box thinking, technical experience, and agility to adapt quickly to change. So the impact of these blockchain, open banking, mobile money, and payment innovation are radically transforming the financial services landscape in Jordan, and will kickstart actually new opportunities. So it is the time that we move forward with these engagements so we can accelerate more.
Thank you so much. So because of time, unfortunately, I'm going to have to conclude the panel. But before I do, I wanted to give each of you 20 seconds or so to give a final thought for today's discussion and anything you want to leave the audience. And let's do that. So let's go from global to local, right? So in the context of Jordan. So Ahmed, from a global Singaporean-based point of view to conclude today's panel, what are your final thoughts for us today?
No, I just think thanks for all the questions. It was awesome to be here. I think we all can go with the digital by working together as one ecosystem, and we just need to. If you're going to take that route on our own, that's going to be very, very hard. But if we work together, we can take that path much more quickly and collectively. That's the way we need to march towards it.
Thank you. Solomon, what are your final thoughts for today?
Final thoughts, and bringing it back to the bigger topic of digital economy. I think in the conventional economy, the borders are solid, whereas in the digital economy, the borders are dotted. And for every country, for any country, Jordan, they can do development for their own ecosystem, but they can also have global aspirations, and I think that is where we want to see Jordan and other countries in the region and in Africa and in the less privileged part of the world going beyond their borders, because the nature of the borders within the digital economy are dotted. So see through those gaps and yeah, okay.
Tariq?
Yeah,
Thank
for
you,
me,
Tariq.
I have nothing to add. I wish for all the audience we're having today best of luck in all their current objectives, future objectives, long-term and short-term. And yes, we are all here to help and to assist whenever needed. Thank you very much.
And thank you so much, panelists. Thank you, audience. Financial inclusion and the digital economy, it's a problem both globally yet locally that we could all combat together through working together. Ricci, Santos, Diaz, thank you again.
Thank you very much, Ricci. Thank you, Mr. Suleiman.
Thank you.
Ahmed, Mr. Tariq. That was a pleasure and a great way to open up
Thank you.
day 2 of Digital Transformation Jordan. But we are moving swiftly on, and I'd like to introduce, and joining us again from yesterday, Mr. Mohammad Sear, from Digital Government and Public Sector Consulting Leader for Middle East and Africa at EY, a veteran advisor to executive leadership in government and private sector across the globe. Mohammad is an associate partner at Ernst & Young for the EY consulting services in the AIM region. He's actively engaged in crafting and facilitating meaningful, impactful, and socially conscious results for the government and public sector. Prior to joining EY in 2014, he held senior executive roles in both the public and private sector organizations, including the UK government, a telco company, and a business consultancy. Mohammad holds an MBA from the University of Leicester. Mohammad, over to you. Mohammad, are you there?
Okay, I hope you can hear me and see me.
Yes, we can, yeah.
Okay, I'm having a bit of a struggle with the slides. Let me just see if I can. I had a problem with my laptop, so it crashed. So if it's okay, I'm going to try and join from another laptop. So there'll be 2 of me. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll find you. It's okay.
Okay, so let me just see if I can.
Yeah, okay.
So I can present the slides over here at least.
Recording in progress.
You should be able to share your slides now.
Yeah, just give me 1 second, and I need to also kill the.
Just while we're waiting for Mohammad to sort out the technical issues, Mohammad, would you be able to turn the volume off on one of your computers? Because
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. Okay, is that better than what I call now?
Yes, that is. Yeah, so after we have, after Mohammad, we do have a technology innovation session with the likes of SAP, Cipher Learning, and Informatica. Which is then followed by our final panel discussion of the day, so paving the way for next-gen e-services and digitizing the customer experience with Orange Jordan, Dell Technologies, Arthur Little, Nutanix, and Cipher Learning, before finishing off with an industry insight. And our iPad lottery draw, which again, you need to be here at the time that I draw your name. Otherwise, you won't be in with a chance of winning, unfortunately. But please do stick around, and hopefully you'll be our lucky winner. But for now, I'll hand back to Mr. Mohammad.
Okay, so I hope it is now working. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much again to giving me this opportunity to come and talk about something that's quite dear to my heart, which is how do we really get governments around the world to benefit from the real power of the technology that we have at our disposal today. And whilst many will talk about digital transformation in government, I'm at least one of those voices which is talking about not digital transformation, but reimagining government for the digital era. And there's a slight difference in take. Whilst you look at reimagining, you start to really think about everything, including the business model, how you operate, and you start to think about all the power that you have at your disposal, and you see how you can actually better serve your core purpose. So I'll just very quickly think those of you who don't know me, so I like to call myself as a futurist thought leader. I'm really on a mission myself personally to try and bring what I call purpose to digital in government and really drive citizen-centric government delivery models. And I feel that, you know, we at a time when we really as visionaries need to imagine and create new realities whilst we don't worry about the status quo. Because if we think about the status quo, then we are going to spend a lot of time, oh, I can't do this because we already have this, there's so much legacy of systems, et cetera, et cetera. So really we need to forget that, and we need to start some blue sky thinking and then come back to the reality and say, okay, what do we do now? How do we really move forward and transform the way we operate as a government? So this, if I look at why this is important, I'm just going to go through narrating my story and why I believe this is the right approach. Around us, if we think, you know, our world has changed so significantly, and COVID particularly has brought this to home for us, that all of what we were doing in the physical space is starting to move more and more into the online space. So everything is converging into either a mobile device or a laptop or an iPad and online. So our world has so much shifted. The whole world is come into our kind of pocket. And you know, you can say the world has become the playground for us, whether it's entertainment, whether it's commerce, whether it's communication, etc. And if we look at the numbers, and this is just not my point of view, so I want to put some objectivity to this. So if we look at the numbers of what's happening, we have something like 4.7 billion internet users around the world in 2020. Of course, that number probably has increased significantly. I don't have the latest numbers with me, but I'm sure it's gone up significantly in this period of COVID. We have something like digital advertising for the first time eclipsing traditional media advertising. So over 50% of spend on digital, on advertising is being in the online space. You have something like 4.1 billion active social media users in 2022. We are spending something like 6.6 hours a day on average on the internet, online, all of us. You know, that's the average. And 82% of internet users search online to buy a product or services. So more and more of our commerce is shifting onto the online space. And then when we look at going forward, we don't see any change. We don't see any let up. We see predictions of something like 1.2 billion 5G connections by 2025. We see connected devices, something like 15 connected devices per person. You and I will have something like 15 devices connected in some shape or form. This means obviously our homes, our offices, our life is much more connected. And what's most astonishing for me in terms of the number is how many interactions per person we are going to have daily. 4,900 digital interactions per person per day by 2025. So this doesn't mean you and I are doing all of this. It means the devices that we are all connected with are doing this. And then, of course, we look at 41.6 billion connected devices by 2025. And we look at how much the data is going to really compile up and become bigger and bigger and bigger as we go forward. And even the shifts we see beyond, these kind of what I said earlier, that we will continue to see a shift of our day-to-day life activities from the physical to the online world. And we see a growth rate of something like 7.5. Now, these numbers are post-COVID, so I'm expecting the projections would have increased. And once I get the latest numbers, I'll be able to share them as well, but I'm expecting it to go up by much higher than this. We're looking at 12.3% annual growth on social media usage. We are looking at 33.2 billion digital education marketplace by 2025. We're looking at 4 to 6 years acceleration in e-commerce as of COVID-19 results. And we're looking at something like 884 billion digital health market. And it goes on and on and on. Yeah. So what I think of when I think of COVID, really what COVID has done for me is actually something that we already knew before, but we were not actually seeing it at the surface. It's actually put a real spotlight on this need for us to think differently because we are already moving so much into the online space. And secondly, it's really created a tailwind that is really, I would say, significantly given a push towards the journey that we've been making towards the digital world. So it's now accelerated. And I think all of the speakers that I've been hearing last many months and even yesterday and today, everyone is talking about the same thing. Digital has become the most talked about topic at the moment around the world. And when we look at governments around the world, of course, there's been a great advancement towards use of digital technologies. And these are some of the numbers from the EGDI survey that came out in 2020, the UN eGov development survey. You're looking at something like 65% of the UN member states now either in the high or very high EGDI ranking. So that means they're very mature, from a maturity perspective, they have really risen quite a lot. And when we look at the member states into how many moved into the higher category, something like 22%, which is showing that even those which are in the medium and lower are pushing upwards quite a lot. And finally, if we look at online transactions, you are seeing something like 84% of states now provide at least one online transaction, which is a remarkable shift from where we were in 2018 and before. However, all this great stuff, but I feel that we have missed a trick. And I think that trick has been missed because all of the approaches we have taken right until now, whether it's the e-government initiative or digital, have been mainly driven by what I call a technology first play. So we think about the technology and we just run after how we can use the technology. And I think that's created a lot more, whilst it's created a lot of benefits for sure, it has created also a lot of side effects. For example, we now have hundreds of fragmented mobile apps. Every government agency in the same country is making applications, portals. They're creating their own channels to kiosks or contact centers or service centers. And you also see that this is contributing towards the digital divide. Whilst digital is extremely important, we should not forget that still more than 50% of the world is not connected, either because they don't have access or they cannot afford access or they are not digitally literate. So we should keep this in mind as governments when we are going forward in our transformation journeys, that digital is definitely the place to go. But not only, we need to also start to embed in our digital strategies. How do we uplift our population, our citizens? How do we make them digital literate? And at the same time, how do we ensure that they're not excluded? If you think about most of the government agencies create their centers for access, the physical ones, in rural areas, urban areas, not rural areas. And the rural areas are the ones generally which are the most disadvantaged. So if we move towards digital more and more, guess what's going to happen? We're still going to create an access problem for the rural communities. So we need to be thinking inclusion by design rather than just digital for digital's sake. So what does this mean? In my opinion, this means we need to really think about things differently. We need to really create a government model that is fit for the digital era rather than trying to take the same model that we have and just use technology to do the same things faster or better, etc. So today, I really think we should, as governments, be asking some fundamental questions. Why do we do what we do today? Maybe it was the right thing to do in the past, but today, maybe there's not needed or someone else can do it. Are these things even needed or redundant? If still needed, is there a better way to do these things, or someone else can do them better than ourselves as a government? And most importantly, what are we not doing today that should be done? So these are the fundamental questions that I think we should be starting to ask ourselves before we move towards digital transformation journeys. So this needs for us to think beyond digitizing and making a paradigm shift to reimagining the role and model of governments. And for me, this means starting to move away from thinking purely digital to moving towards what I call a more citizen-centric model of government. I give it the name SMART. And there's a purpose behind why I call it SMART, because I think if I think about digital as a term, it's a technology term. Yesterday was E, today is digital, something else will come. SMART will never fade out. It means, that I am being able to be quick-witted, intelligent. I'm able to, in essence, process a huge amount of information and data, acquire and apply knowledge and skills, and then think or respond quickly and efficiently. That is what, in essence, I believe is at the core of the role of a government. So we need to be about SMART. And that means, as a system, the ability to constantly identify and predict and understand needs of the citizens before they have even figured out these. We often hear this word about, oh, look, Apple came with a product nobody even knew that was required. The world hadn't asked for it, but they figured it out. It was because they were studying human behavior. They were studying needs. They were studying what are the frictions in the world that can be taken away. And that's where we need to be thinking as governments. So we should be really about, converting this intelligence into insights and actions that would really enable citizens to live a secure, healthy, meaningful, content, and fulfilled life. At the end of the day, if that's what we are able to do as governments and enable these, we will have happy citizenry. I think we.
Sorry, 1 second, Michelle, can you stop sharing your screen? Mohammed, if you just start sharing again, it will take her off.
Yeah, sorry.
Michelle, if you can hear me, please stop sharing your screen. Apologies, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, apologies about that. We're back on track. So in essence, what I was saying that, really from a citizen's perspective, we want to see our citizens secure, healthy, meaningful, content, fulfilled. And really, we should be looking at effectively and efficiently using all the resources what we have at our disposal as a government, whether it's natural resources, people, digital, technology, etc. Big data is going to play a big role. And really, we should be constantly questioning and challenging the status quo as governments, because that's how we will continuously provide meaningful value to our citizenry. So this is, yeah, okay. So that, for me, when I then look at what does it mean from a conceptual perspective, moving from what I call more of a doer to an enabler as a government. And for me, a smart government of the future would be focused around these 5 principles. First of all, the focus of the government would be citizen life experiences. And I'll go into that in a little bit later, what I mean by that. And then the core of that government model will be built around data and analytics. The model it will deploy will be much more ecosystem centered. So using everyone in the ecosystem, whether it's startups, private sector, government agency themselves, plus academia, thought leaders, etc., to create a better whole. And the emphasis will be digital by default, but not only. It keeps in mind that we need to design things with inclusion. So we make sure we address those communities which could be out of the digital digital space because they don't have access. And the obsession should be about outcomes, not what I call outputs. Typically, we look at outputs, and outcomes are much more fulfilling, and it really makes the difference to people. So if we look at what does that mean, it means transitioning from a very cumbersome and complicated citizen-government relationship. So all of you recognize this. I mean, and we are all as citizens before anything else. Whatever roles we play in life, we're born as a citizen of a country. So if we think from a pure citizen's perspective, what is happening right now, even digitally starting to do this, is creating so many different connecting points with one citizen. And I'm using very broadly the term citizen for any user of government services, whether it's business or visitors, etc. And in some countries, there are different layers, and otherwise you're talking about a horizontal, many different organizations that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So one government, but many brands, many layers, many access points. And also, most of the effort is on me as an individual, whether I'm a business or a individual citizen, to do things. So I have to apply for a passport. I have to do this. So it's very reactive, and I have to go through all the processes that need to do, provide information, many times provide the same information to different government agencies. And the need itself is not what I call totally fulfilled, partially fulfilled. You may have 5 agencies who are contributing towards an entrepreneur who wants to start a business. So total fulfillment from a entrepreneur perspective is not getting 1 document or 2 documents or 3 documents. It's actually opening their doors and starting to trade. But from that government agency perspective, for them starting a business is just doing that bit which they are responsible for. So how do we bring total fulfillment, make it easy, and maybe have starting a business as a service which enables the citizen or the user to really have a better and frictionless experience? So for me, it's actually looking at moving, I call it uber simple model. I use the term Uber because we all know how Uber has simplified our life. So, and Uber convenient, because anytime I want to go from one place to another, I can get it. And super fast, that really shifts the burden and effort from the citizen to the government or the system itself. And for that, I believe there is a layer in thinking which is missing, which I call citizen life experience management. Wouldn't it be great if our government thought about from birth to grave, all of the different stages of our life, and proactively defined and designed what does an ideal, amazing experience look like? And then try to enact that experience through policies or other mechanisms. For example, having one unified and single branded front end of government. Why do we need to deal with 40 or 50 different access points in government? Why can't it be just simplified as we go on to Amazon or something else and we get the services? Having an online, omni-channel experience with digital being first, and helping our societies to move towards digital literacy so they can use and benefit from the digital technologies, and moving towards life moment-based services. So when someone has a child, for example, that's a life moment. There are many things that get triggered off, including maybe their birth has to be registered. After that, there may be many different things that they have to have, maybe a passport at some point in time. Then they have to have some other maybe health service, etc., etc. Why couldn't the trigger be that once you register someone's birth, it automatically, predictively, proactively makes all of those things happen? So it registers you for your passport automatically when you become at a certain age and you now can have a passport. And if there are some benefits that you should be getting, or the mother should be getting, or the parent should be getting because they've had a child, in some countries that is the case, why should I apply for it? Why shouldn't that trigger be the one which creates a trigger for me to receive a push notification and saying, hey, congratulations on the birth of your child. Here's the benefits you're entitled to. We will be sending them to your bank account on a monthly basis or whatever. Those kind of, frictionless experiences. And of course, policies and regulations that will drive the private sector even, and the third sector to play the role in enabling different life experiences. So you're kind of moving from what I call, effortless a proactive. So if my passport is about to expire in 3 months' time, I get a push notification from the government that your passport is expired. Would you like to send me your new passport? Swipe right, yes, or left, no. You swipe right, you say, can you confirm your details are accurate? Swipe right, okay, you will get your passport in 3 days. In 3 clicks, you've got your service. If you know this person already had a passport, maybe there's some biometrics and others, things need to be done. You just being pointed to go and get this done, but you don't have to stand in queues or even online go and apply for things. Predictive, which is moving much more towards identification of when I know that, for example, the same passport example, you've been traveling a lot. Maybe you've been traveling so much that you run out of passport pages. Then, maybe we should be looking at giving you a new passport. I reach out to you as a government and say that you've been traveling so much. Would you, do you have enough pages, etc. And finally, looking at what I call the total fulfillment, which I mentioned about business as an example, starting a business. How do we bring everything together and combine them? Now, what I'm talking about, these things are not like not happening in the world. There are many countries who are already on this journey, doing many of these things. Estonia is a great example. Denmark is a great example. UK is doing some things. We have UAE, we have Saudi, we have New Zealand. You look around the world, you'll find many great examples of all of these things I talk about that should be happening. But how can we holistically do it and bring it together in a more combined way, in a holistic way? That is something to think about. And the other thing I just want to very quickly touch on is the role of citizens. We need to also look at moving from a passive role, where as citizens, we are normally only involved through participating in election once a year, or once every 4 years or 5 years, to much more of what I call, a contributory model, where now, because technology is enabling this to happen, for us to be engaged, have a voice, be able to contribute, play a bigger role than just what we've been playing in terms of problem solving, priority setting, policy making, etc. Again, we see some good examples around the world, but this is something that I feel the open government concept talks a lot about this, but in terms of implementation of this, we are still far, far away from that. And then when you talk about the technology, typically we see governments in a very siloed, independent, everyone's got their own technology stacks and running them and costing so much as well. And they're not integrated together. So there is difficulty in talking to each other, although some countries have really explored this and put in place mechanisms to move towards what is called a more integrated and a shared ICT infrastructure. So government as a platform, which again needs a different mindset, and for us to be thinking again as citizens and moving away from our political positions that we hold in each of the government agencies and think more from a nation perspective and try to do what is right for the long term. And data exchange is the most critical in this whole, I would say, story, because unless we share data, we cannot make it uncomplicated for the user who is giving the necessary information that is required by each agency. And then finally, when we look at our transformation, let's look at it holistically. Let's look at the different lenses we can apply on this. For example, we can think from a legislative perspective, executive perspective, and judiciary perspective and say, how do we look at this whole and transform these 3 branches of government? We can look at it from interactions perspective, the G interactions, the G2B interaction, G2C, G2E, and even you can have G2P, which is partners or vendors, etc. And then when you look at an organization, how do you look at it from the holistic perspective of the leadership, which is there to direct, govern, and manage performance, and the front end, which is your channels and communication and services, the production part, which I talk about, where your core processes. So if you are a passport agency, those processes will produce your passports. And then we talk about the overall organizational enablement. So your supporting functions like HR, procurement, finance, etc. So how do we look at this holistically? 2 other lenses which you can apply as well, which I haven't put here, but we can, which is a sectorial lens. So looking at healthcare, looking at education, etc., holistically, and saying, how do we reimagine healthcare for the digital? How do we reimagine education for the digital era. And then the other is your different levels of government. So federal, state, local government, etc., could be another lens to look at it from. And finally, whilst we do all
I
of
just have to give you a 1 minute warning if that's all right.
Yeah, sure. I'm just wrapping up. So if I look at it from a perspective of the traditional versus what we could do with the investment. So how do we make the investment we're going to make in digital transformation actually work better for us? So the same dollar gives us 2 benefits or 3 benefits. Typically, we've seen governments will invest in ICT infrastructure, transformation, and it's a spend mindset oriented. I'm going to build more technology. I'm going to build. And they're going to do themselves. Why not use the same money to also stimulate the digital economy and to get into play the ecosystem part? So how do we use that transformation journey to also stimulate and create a digital economy, which will be more sustainable for the long term, but also shift government from doing everything themselves and working more as a collaborative model where you are taking the benefit of startups, academia, big organizations, etc. So collectively you work rather than try to just do everything yourself. So finally, this requires us to shift our mindset from what I call a technology first led approach to an experience first led approach. I shall conclude at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mohammed, and apologies for that, and apologies for the other screen sharing interrupting you there. Not sure quite what happened. If you would be possible to stick around, there's been a few comments that have come through in the chat, but we don't have time for any questions at the moment. But thank you very much, Mohammed. It was a pleasure to have you. Moving swiftly on, I'd like to introduce Ernesto Smith, Head of Business Development Service Industries for EMEA South at SAP. Ernesto is a banking transformation lead at SAP. He has close to 20 years experience in the design and execution of customer-centric strategies and solutions for financial services. Inspired by good designs, great people, science and nature, his mission is to help financial institutions run their best by delivering best digital experiences. Ernesto, over to you.
Thank you very much, Greg. Want to make sure everybody's listening me okay?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you again. And let's go straight. I wanted to share with you this picture I captured while doing vacation there in my home country in Spain. Whenever I had to, in that city, get a parking ticket, I had to go to this machine. And what I felt is confusion. I immediately thought, who designed this and why did they put the keys like that? Not only my home country, other places like where I'm based out of and live in Dubai, sometimes I get confused when I see a lift that just goes between 2 floors, and then suddenly so many tags, so many labels, just 2 floors. But why I'm telling you this? Because those are probably not the best examples of good design. And we are here to talk about designing good customer experiences in banking. In fact, the greatest we can. And what is important to understand is what is behind matters. And what is behind a good design? Well, there is a machine. And that machine is truly defining how those great designs come to be. My goal today is to walk you through that precisely, the journey of designing great customer experience, looking at that big machine that banks have behind. And I want to do that by first defining what is a customer experience. And a customer experience is just as easy as the result of a great product personalized by the operational data that the bank has. These are the best assets that banks have to drive to design great customer experiences in banking. Now, the challenge we face on that operational data is how can we increase the insight we have on our customers, on our banking customers? The answer that we provide is giving you full product and customer profitability, so you can better shape your products and deliver that through the best channels, and do that also leveraging all that knowledge of your customers. Only then you will be able to increase the revenue and margin of your bank. But how can we get those better insights? Well, it's as easy as getting a quite a prescriptive view of what is my customer profitability today. That is calculated based on all the relevant transactions. Also, what is the customer lifetime value, which means how valuable my customer is today and tomorrow. And to fill that gap, I get an advice on suggested activities to precisely make that big gap even closer. Now, customer lifetime value is the foundation of dynamic relationship pricing, which extends our product personalization to pricing. So we need then this piece to define sophisticated customer pricing mechanism, and to do that in a centralized way, because the intention of the bank is as well to work through others, digital players, and provide the services through them as well. So it needs to run as a service, and it needs to also be extremely compliant, so we know always how that figure was calculated. Now, to calculate dynamic relationship pricing, we need to take into consideration a lot of information, particularly customer data. But we have a problem. Customer data is not part of my operational data. In fact, that data doesn't belong to us, to the bank. It belongs to the customer. The only way we can get the data is we solve the challenge of getting the customer to trust us. Trust is the biggest challenge we face. How can we drive a trust relationship with my customer? Well, I personally consider that we are now in the fourth generation of customer relationships. And so first was all about offline relationships, the classical branch banking. Then we talk about digital relationships when we roll out mobile, online, and even the ATMs in the branches. Next, we decided to leverage all those massive amounts of information and then personalize those relationships, but it felt weird. Customers didn't buy that fully, and they felt like strange. How do they know? How does the bank know what they know? That's why the next generation of relationships is about trusted relationships, one where trust is everything and at its core. Because over 2/3 of customers around the world won't trust any company with the personal information, not even a bank. And banks are much more evolved than that. Why? Well, because they already are having a better position in terms of the customers trusting the bank. And this will become the biggest differentiator against fintechs and digital players. So what will happen if we will give them to the customer transparency and control? 2/3 after the survey decided they will share the data if they had full transparency on how the bank is going to use that data and control over that data at all times. That's precisely what we provide by our customer data platform, all the features and capabilities that we need to manage that transparency and do that with the consent of the customer. Because trust, as in real life, is a journey. It takes time to get built. And the best way to do that is by exchanging value for it. Over time, we can perfectly then get the name, the email of the customer by allowing him to join a newsletter where we provide him personal finance advice. Next, we give them a personalized offer, and then we capture additional data on their preferences. And last, it's our overall intention to get to convert any anonymous visitor into a non-loyal customer. And we at RCP became quite good at that, because right now we manage more than 1.6 billion identities throughout more than 4 billion devices. Having that trust and doing that with transparency and control will certainly increase our customer base. Next up, the product itself. To drive not too many, neither too irrelevant interactions. How can we drive better interactions? By doing it intelligently. Intelligence is key to dress precisely to increase effectiveness and reduce costs. How can we drive better interactions? Well, with scenarios like this. Easily through a conversation, I can get to interact with my bank at any time from any place, from even the kitchen. How can we build these kind of scenarios? Well, we need a solid platform that allows us in many areas at the bank to automate precisely and to improve those interactions, to embed that intelligence, that level of intelligence that will give that convenience and easiness to my customer. That needs to be multilingual, it needs to be multi-channel, and needs to truly understand, process and understand several languages, including Arabic. Now, we are working not only embedding intelligence in this kind of platforms, but also in every kind of product we have. And we would do that by working with renowned academia across the world, like Cornell University, the MIT, Carnegie Mellon. Only then, by working with them and giving back also to the community, we're able to improve our solutions and embed, make them, all of them, much more intelligent. And last but not least, the customer experience itself. There, the big challenge we're facing is to get to know our customers' intent. This is my daughter. The other day, she approached an anaconda and she wanted to touch her. My ability to understand what is her intent when heading there and getting close to the anaconda will completely define her experience at the zoo. So we need really to know our customers' intent. And the best way to do that is by understanding the context that's around them, that surrounds our customers. How can we get that context? Well, if we get it, we will, better than anyone else, increase the customer satisfaction. And the way to do that is just by connecting the dots. We just look at the context as a succession of events and interactions. If we connect the dots, what we are understanding is the journey of my customer, what he has done in the past, what is he doing right now, and what he may do in the future. And only then, when I get real-time access to that context, is when I get to deliver contextually relevant experiences. So the next time that that visitor goes to our web and wants to continue exploring, there's something here. Yeah. Those products, I get to proactively there, while comparing those bank accounts, offer them a product just for him, a line of credit, for example, with a personalized price just for him. This is the strongest way to turn anyone, a customer, a regular visitor, or this prospect, into a loyal customer. That context also gives me a very interesting understanding of the sequence of events that lead to the realization of my most successful products. Or why not? The events that lead to customers to leave me. What it won't tell me is the why. So let's summarize what we have seen till now. We have seen who is my customer, what I want to offer to him, how I'm going to do that, through what channel. We just need to wait for the right when and where. But what we won't know is the why. Why is different. We don't know even if he likes it or not. How can we get to know precisely that? Well, that is a new kind of data. We call it experience data. And to get that data, we need to show empathy to him. And the best way to do that is by listening, truly listening to our customers, understanding their thoughts and emotions. Only then we will increase considerably the customer loyalty and turn that customer into a fan, bring in his network of family and friends. How can we get to know my customer and what he's thinking and feeling about me? Many banks feel like we are all doing already. We are delivering a superior experience as others, but the reality is completely different. We get to know the truth by asking the customer, as easy as that. Natural conversations, very easy, very simple, very short, at key moments of the customer interactions. Those information feed then our and get blended with the insights I have and the behavior of the customer, guiding towards the best set of next actions with him. And all of that parallel at scale at the bank will create a beautiful dashboard showing how is my satisfaction by product, by branch, by customer type, by channel. We believe this is a solid way to drive a strategy on customer experience. And we call it the digital mile. We think that the faster you get to walk this mile, the better equipped you are to deliver great experiences in banking. Thank you very much. Over to you, Greg.
Thank you very much, Ernesto. That was great. Unfortunately, we don't have time for questions, but if you are able to stick around, there has been some comments in the chat if you're able to message directly with our audience. But for now, thank you very much, Ernesto.
Thank you, Greg.
Moving swiftly on, I'd like to introduce Jen Padanel from Cipher Learning. Currently, Jen is the Global Director of Education and Technology at Cipher Learning, a global company that specializes in providing learning platforms for organizations around the world. Jen is responsible for delivering educational technology centers for the company worldwide and designs online courses, resources, webinars, so that organizations and schools can experience the full functionality of learning platforms. Jen, over to you.
Thank you, Greg. Hello, everybody. I hope that all of you are keeping safe. I'd like to say good morning, good evening, good afternoon, just to make sure I cover all of the time zones and to make sure that you're seeing my screen. Can I get a thumbs up if you're seeing my screen and
Yes,
if you can hear me clearly?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So just so you know, I'm on the other side of the world. I'm in the Philippines at the moment. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I've been listening to the speakers and I've been learning a lot from them also. So today I'm going to be sharing a little bit something about hybrid workplace, which is becoming more and more popular, especially in this time of pandemic. And I'm sure most of us, if not all of us, are actually experiencing now this new way of working. You work from home and at the same time you work at the office. So that's kind of like a little bit something new. Let me just share this with you. Do you feel this also? Year 2020, a little bit of a backtrack here. Everything stopped when 2020 happened. The world stopped. Things were put into a halt. So the hashtag, a popular hashtag would probably be year 2020, the struggle is real. So work, schools, events, other activities, a lot of changes happened, especially in the world of work. Imagine we are used to getting up in the morning, dressing up for work, putting on our best business attire, or driving to work, taking the bus, taking the train. That's kind of like our usual routine. But when the pandemic happened, that definitely changed. It changes everything. It changes the way that we work. It changes the way that we move. It changes kind of like, the way that we do things normally. And even training or working from home, this became the new normal. And this is what most companies thought is the safest way for everybody so that they can also continue their business operations. And I, for one, agree with this. I'm currently experiencing this kind of setup. But now that in some countries where COVID cases are slowly decreasing and things are starting to ease up, and more establishments are starting to open and having their employees return to work, we have a new challenge. There's a new struggle in town, and that's returning to work. Returning to work is becoming a struggle because we have a lot of concerns now. Okay, this has been a lot of employees are getting anxious about returning to work. Imagine 1.5 years or more than almost 2 years of that's more than 1.5 years, right? It's almost 2 years of not being in a physical public workplace, and then suddenly when things are starting to ease up, not that it's bad, we have to return to work. Okay, so we have a lot of concerns now. A lot of employees, a lot of us, and we can all probably relate to this. They start to think of many things. They start to think of how am I going to do this? They start to become anxious, having a hard time to adjust, especially that they have been, as I mentioned, we have been at home for more than a year or almost 2 years. So we worry about a lot of things. We worry about physical and social distancing. We have to wear masks in our workplace. We worry about public transport or commuting publicly. We worry about our family because, if we worry about if we go out and we come back home, we're probably infected and we infect also the members of our family. So these are the things that's making a lot of people, a lot of us very anxious at the moment. So we think of how are we going to make this work? No, not only the employees are thinking, how do I make this work? I need this livelihood. I need work, but I'm too scared to go to a physical office at the moment because we know that, COVID is still there. And at the same time, the employers of the organization are also thinking of, hey, I need to keep my employees, but I also need to make something work. They can't just keep working at home, but there's also a risk when I ask them to return to the physical workspace. So probably this could be the answer, creating a hybrid workplace. So to address that, we can look at, creating a different workspace or workplace now. A lot of companies are doing this now, while others are probably still contemplating and still thinking how they can make this work. So let's see. Let me provide some perspective that might help others make this decision, because I'm personally experiencing a hybrid workplace. The concept is very simple. A hybrid workplace is a combination of working from home with working from the office. Pretty straightforward, working remotely and working in the physical office. This model aims to strike a balance of productivity at work, reducing stress of commute, reducing the stress of being in the outside world and the risk of getting infected. And there are several approaches to a hybrid workplace. There are many, but I'm going to share a few with you. One of which is portioning approach. Okay, sounds like portioning of food, right? Portioning approach, this is kind of like a portion of your employees are working from home, while the other portion are working at the office. So in this approach, what you need to look at are the different responsibilities and the task of employees, and see what tasks are possible to be done at home. So not everybody gets to work at home, because there are things that cannot be done at home. So this approach lessens the number of people going to office, thus lessens the viral load and the chance of people getting infected. And then you also have the rotation approach. Okay, the way that it works is that alternately groups of employees can work from home and the others in the office. So probably group A of employees this week work from home. Group B is at the office, and then you switch the following week. B is at the office, and then A stays at home. So that would also lessen the number of people in the workplace. And then you have the on-call approach. So everybody works from home, and then as needed, or if needed, for example, a town hall or critical meeting, special events, they can be on site with limited number. And then you can also have this approach that's choose your own setup. If it's really important for everybody to return to work, you may allow your employees to choose their own workplace setup or workplace preference, the setup that makes them feel safer and comfortable, but not really isolated. So you can also try that one. So along with this hybrid workplace approach for returning to work, there are some benefits that we can get from this. So the benefits of hybrid workplace are, it could be more than what I'm sharing with you. But one of the many benefits would be it promotes a good mental and emotional well-being of employees. A hybrid workplace puts into priority the employee well-being. It has to encourage work-life balance, which can help ease anxiety of employees that may have about returning to a physical workspace or having to commute on a public transportation. This is very critical for those employees who are immunocompromised or caring for someone who's immunocompromised at home. It's also economical in some sense, because companies can save a lot of money or resources when employees choose to work from home, like internet, electricity, rental expenses, and any other facility costs that company won't also need to look for a larger space, which means also savings from rental fees. And this could also be a less turnover, right? Employees worry less about their safety. It's less likely that they will leave and they will quit and find another company that puts their safety on priority. And then also it gives the company an opportunity to keep a pool of talent easier. So organizations offering a combination of physical and remote work setup for employees will also likely to have a larger talent pool, because they can hire from any geographic location or region to work for them. And I can attest to that, because I've worked in a largely diverse company whose employees are located in different countries. So that's going to be another advantage for a hybrid workplace. So another one is it promotes a safer work environment, of course. Hybrid workplace reduce the chances of spreading contagious viruses or diseases. They can choose to work from home if they're feeling a little bit unwell or a little bit under the weather. So a hybrid workplace may also be an alternative to organization with employees who are a little bit hesitant or do not plan on getting vaccinated, but I hope that everyone does. And then more importantly, it can create a disaster-proof organization for you. So a disaster-proof organization is it's a model that promotes continuously working despite these disturbances. So work and training can continue in a hybrid workplace, especially when you're having proper use of technology like a learning management system. So along with the benefits, you're probably thinking, hey, there are benefits, but what about the challenges? So there are also challenges. Not everyone can do hybrid. Not all employees can work remotely. Frontliners, they cannot. Machine operators, they cannot. So we have to look at that. Connectivity issue is another. Not everybody has a very strong internet connectivity, as mentioned by one of our speakers earlier. Productivity issue could also be, some managers might think that just because the employees are working at home, then they are not productive. Or an employee might think that, hey, just because my manager is not seeing me working, he might think I'm not productive. And another challenge would probably the feeling of exclusion. Not being included in critical conversation is kind of like an issue also. The feeling of isolation, because most employees who's been working at home might feel that they're being isolated, especially the extroverted ones just like me. So these are just some of the challenges. But with these challenges, there are also things that we can do to combat these challenges. And I'm going to give a few tips on how you can successfully implement a hybrid workplace. First is prioritize safety. Make the workplace a safe haven for returning employees so that they don't feel anxious or worried about getting sick or being infected when they are in the physical office. You also want to make sure that it's inclusive. Make sure that you involve your employees in the process of setting up for a hybrid workplace. Okay, make sure that their ideas matters and their opinion matters. So you also have to maintain fairness and balance. Maintain fairness and balance between those who can and cannot work remotely. That's very important. Another one is communicate. Maintain a regular and open communication between you and your employees about the company's plan when it comes to returning to work. It's very important that for the employees to know for how long are they going to be working from home and when are they going to be returning to work. Another important thing to look at is invest in technology. Make sure that to stay connected, you have to leverage in technology and you have to adapt the right tools. Make sure that the right tools are being used. Employee training is an important aspect. So make sure that you have a good learning management system for one to be used in employee training. So these are some of the tips that I can share with you so that you can implement a successful hybrid workplace. And to end my presentation, because I want to keep that 10 minutes, I think I'm over 1 minute now, but just to share with you the silver lining of what's happening in the situation. So the pandemic brought the world to a standstill. Definitely it does. But think about this. This also brought out the best in each and every one of us. We became more resourceful, we became more creative, and we became more innovative. So think about setting up your own hybrid workplace now and make it work for everybody so that everybody is keeping safe. Thank you so much, everyone. Back to you, Greg.
Thank you very much, Jen. That was great. And I know that you're joining the panel discussion after this.
Yes.
So obviously people can send you questions in the panel discussion. But for now, thank you very much. Now, before I move on to our next speaker, we have just a quick message from one of our partners, Informatica.
What does true digital
transformation look like? Over the last decade, it has been all about modernizing in the cloud, focused on infrastructure, database, applications, business intelligence, and data warehouse
and lake? What's the critical missing piece? To truly achieve and accelerate your digital transformation, it is how you manage your data that matters most. Data is your most critical asset and the only thing that you really own. How you manage it will determine your success. True digital transformation requires a data management cloud to put data at the center of your digital transformation. The wait is finally over. Introducing Informatica's Intelligent Data Management Cloud, the industry's first and most comprehensive cloud-native and AI-powered data management platform, designed to help you manage and innovate with your data on any platform, any cloud, multi-cloud, and multi-hybrid. At over 17 trillion transactions per month, the Intelligent Data Management Cloud delivers the scale you need. And with over 200 cloud-native intelligent data services, you can catalog, ingest, integrate, prep, cleanse, master, and share all of your data wherever it is. Process it in any way you want. Ensure it's trusted and democratized on a foundation of governance while delivering intelligent insights with a 360-degree view of your business. Informatica's Intelligent Data Management Cloud. Every cloud-native intelligent data service you will ever need for data management. At scale and in the cloud in a single platform. Informatica.
Brilliant, and that leads very nicely on to our next speaker from Informatica. Jerome Kuzi is a data governance and privacy domain expert with Informatica. With more than 10 years experience in the analytical world, Jerome is helping companies leverage the value of their data. Jerome will share how the Informatica Intelligent Data Management Platform can help enterprises accelerate their digital transformation by using understood, trusted, and governed data. Jerome, over to you.
Thanks very much for the intro, Greg. Hi, everybody. Very happy to be here with you remotely. So I don't want to talk about technology specifically. I want to talk about data in general. And I want to talk specifically about data governance and how using governed, trusted data is essential for creating business value for your enterprises. Now, today's session will have a first look at what is this business value and how it plays with the analytical world. We'll then understand how we can plan strategically in order to drive the business value with data governance. Then I'll have a look at a reality, what's the reality like, what are the different challenges and how we can overcome them. And then we'll have a look at how a platform, technology platform, can help as an accelerator to drive these business values. And we'll have a look at a few takeaways. Now, data analytics is a key topic for every modern enterprise. It's no secret that adopting a data-driven strategy is essential to remain competitive. And it is even more true now that the pandemic has started. Yet, you look at these numbers on the screen, the number of unsuccessful programs is overwhelming. In fact, most of the enterprises are failing and are unable to leverage data and data analytics to impact truly the business. Now, the question is, why is it so difficult? And before I answer that question, why, I want to first have a look at what is the life cycle of a data in the analytical world. And if you have a look at this, this is a circle, and it starts by IT getting access to data. And then you will have technical people who will be exploring the data, they will be searching, they will be preparing, they will be creating models. These models will be accessed through reports, dashboards, for business people to actually make decisions. And the data governance is the practice that is going to be the cement around all of these steps, and it should be present at each step of the way. Now, this is great, but the real value, the business value, is lying in only one of these steps, the decision step. And the question is, are you designing, when you create an analytical program or project, are you starting by defining what is going to be the business value that you're after? And then you create that circle? Or do you start from data exploration and then you end up with whatever you can, basically? Now, the real question is, do you know what value you're aiming for? And to determine that, you need to start thinking value and not thinking technology or data or project. You need to start thinking value. And the first step to define that value is define what is the business driver that you're after. And you need to ask yourself, what is that business driver that my executives or yourself are after? They typically fall into three families. It could be either reducing costs. For example, you would want to reduce redundant manual data processing, or maybe you want to increase your profits. And you could do that by enabling your business users to run reports and analytics on your customers' data to better understand them. Or you might want to reduce the risks by, for example, avoiding fines from the regulatory authorities. Now, once you have defined what is your main business driver, you'll be able to go one level down and define what are the actual use cases that are going to be serving that business driver. Now, by the way, you could have multiple drivers across the enterprise, but it's really recommended to start by the one that is most urgent. And by defining the best use case that you want to run after, you can start thinking strategically. Now, a good candidate for a use case has to be concrete, realistic, and have measurable benefits. Now, at first, you would probably determine a list of different applications or use cases that are impactful for your business. And you might want to select the one that is the quickest to implement and has the maximum impact on your business, what we call a quick win. Obviously, some use cases are industry specific and some are applicable to any kind of business. We see typically use cases in 4 families. The first one is insights and analytics. You might be wanting to reduce cost and time spent by user to find and access data, and that would be fueling self-service analytics. Smart metering in the energy sector is a good example, or marketing analysis in retail. The second kind of use case is regulation. An example is enterprises in the financial services sector want to reduce risk exposure by putting in operation the central bank's regulation and avoid getting fines. Any kind of B2C company would be after GDPR or the local flavors in Jordan or in the Gulf to protect the customer data and avoid regulation fines. Another example, a family of use cases is what we call business enablement. You want to break the silos of data. You've got data everywhere, but you don't really know, what to do with it. Risk evaluation in the insurance is a good example where you could be using data from different places. And the last one, which is probably at the heart of everybody's strategy today, is digital transformation, and specifically cloud digital transformation. Now, most of the people in the room today are planning to go to the cloud. They've already gone to the cloud, maybe multiple clouds. And really, it's important to understand what you're doing, how you're moving your data, how it is moving, what kind of data you're moving. For example, somebody in the healthcare industry might want to be cautious about patients' data going to the cloud. Do you want to mask the data because it's sensitive, or are you controlling how the data is moving? Now, what's common with all these examples, and let's be very clear, it's the trust that you are building around your data. If your users, if your business is not trusting the data, they will not use it and they will not make any decision. And that's a good time, I think, to have a step back and look at the reality on the ground. Everything that I just shared is beautiful, it's perfect. Now, the reality is obviously really different. And there's a lot of things that most of us in the room would have encountered. Lack of automation is a big one. Misalignment between business and IT is another one. And my 2 favorites, personally, the lack of visibility and lack of sponsorship. Now, fortunately, these challenges can be avoided by putting a strong data governance practice in place. And one of the key aspects to succeed in this is to articulate your strategy around a platform or a technology solution which will act as an accelerator for your strategy. Now, if there's one thing that we have seen so far, and what you need to remember, is that there is no one size fits all when it comes to data governance and data analytics. And naturally, the technology should be supporting the strategy, your strategy, and not the other way around. It shouldn't be your strategy to adapt to the platform. And that's why you want to find a modular platform that will enable you to start your data journey wherever you are, and provides you the versatility to add new features or new components as your journey matures. So maybe you want to start by defining your business context, assign roles and responsibilities across the enterprise to different people who are playing a role with the data, business owners, data stewards, business analysts. And once you've done that, maybe you want to tag the technical assets, so scanning all your data assets across the enterprise, getting a view of all these data repositories. And you want to map these, so the business and the technical side of your data. Or maybe you want to do it the other way around. Maybe you want to start by first getting a technical understanding of where is your data, and then assign the ownerships and the policies around the data. And as your project is going to grow, you're going to build data integration pipeline with built-in data quality, which will inherit from the intelligence that you will have built with the cataloging and the governance definitions. And later down the line, you're going to maybe want to add a 360 degrees view of your customers using master data management, or maybe you want to assess your data protection risks, specifically in the case of regulations or the cloud. Now, you can only do that starting somewhere, going somewhere else, following your own path if you have a platform that is modular, which is sharing metadata across all of these components, and that has artificial intelligence built in to accelerate the rollouts of your initiatives. And this is how you will have a holistic management of your data across your enterprise. Now, here's a good example of how the solution, the technology solution, can boost your analytics by providing a self-service data access using a marketplace. So one of the key things is democratization of data. You want to make sure that people around you in the enterprise are able to access data and do things with that. Things could be reporting, could be machine learning, anything, but people need to have access to data. And using a marketplace is actually a good way of connecting all these different people to the data. Typically, a data owner who will be responsible for maintaining a data set and making sure it's of good quality will be able to create, publish that data set in the marketplace, and a data consumer who will be able to go and, just like you would do on Amazon or souq.a, search for data, customers' data. What kind of customers' data do I have across the enterprise? And they might want to understand what is good, what is bad, what kind of specifics each data set has. What is the community saying about it? Is it trusted or not? Is it usable or not? And once the data consumer has found the perfect data set and is ready to get access or request access to that data to build these reports, he will go through a checkout process, exactly the same as Amazon. He will say how he wants for the data to be delivered. He will provide justification. And if the request is approved, there will be tracking and a fulfillment process, giving the ability for people who are managing the data in the enterprise to track who has access to what data, potentially revoke access later. So this is really about making self-service analytics a reality in a controlled way and in a governed way. And Informatica is very well positioned to handle all of these use cases and all of these requirements, and is recognized as being a leader, or the clear leader actually by Gartner in 5 of the major quadrants that we operate in. Now, to conclude, 3 key takeaways from this session. First one, it is clear that data governance is essential for creating business value. Putting controls in how you use the data, putting an aim into how you're going to use the data through data governance is key for a project to succeed. The second one is thinking strategically. You need to understand where you're going before you can actually put that in action. And you can do that by using a platform such as the Intelligent Data Platform from Informatica to accelerate that journey and make sure this is a success. And with that, thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day.
Jerome, thank you very much. If you are sticking around, then please do answer some questions in the chat.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. But for now, I'd like to move on to our final panel discussion of digital transformation, Jordan. And I would like to introduce Mr. Paritosh Mukhija, who will be moderating the panel. Paritosh is a seasoned management consultant with Arthur D. Little Middle East, based out of Dubai. Paritosh specializes in the TMT sector and has advised telecoms operators across nearly all of the Middle Eastern countries, including Jordan, on digital transformation and commercial topics. Paratosh also heads the Value Growth Strategies Competence Center of Arthur D. Little, and by qualification has an MBA and a degree in electrical engineering. Paratosh, over to you.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Greg, for the intro. So before we dive into the panel discussion, let me introduce our esteemed panelists. So first, we have Aaron White, who is the General Manager of Middle East and Mediterranean region for Nutanix, which is a leading American cloud computing company. Aaron has more than 20 years of industry experience, wherein he has won several awards from multiple companies in the technology sector, including Citrix, VMware, Sun, and Unisys. Aaron also holds a master's in information systems. Next, we have Ahmed Muammar. He's a transformational leader, passionate technologist, and IT veteran with 20+ years of technology experience. Ahmed is currently leading the emerging technology practice in Dell's Meerut region. Ahmed works in the fields of IT transformation, cloud computing, and virtualization, big data, analytics, smart cities, and data center architecture. Ahmed also holds a bachelor's in electrical engineering from Jordan and an MBA from Strathclyde University, in addition to several specializations and certifications in data and cloud. Next, we have Ms. Arwa Ghazal, who is a senior digital transformation expert in the transportation and logistics industry. Arwa graduated from Jordan University of Science and Technology with a major in computer information systems. Next, we have Jen, who just presented her seminar. Currently, Jen is the Global Director of Education and Technology at Cipher Learning, which is a global company that specializes in providing learning platforms for organizations around the world. Jen is responsible for developing educational technology centers for the company worldwide and designs online courses, resources, webinars, so that organizations and schools can experience the full functionality of the learning platforms. And lastly, we have Nicola. So Nicola is the Digital Products and Transformation Director at Orange Jordan, where he has been working for the past 14 years. He currently manages the digital kitchen of Orange Jordan, and he's responsible for digitizing the customer journeys end-to-end of Orange Jordan customers, along with the internal transformation of Orange Jordan, which is powered by automating processes and optimizing the costs. So welcome all of you. Great to have you for this panel discussion. And without further ado, let's move on to our first question, which we want to ask to all of our panelists, which is that how digital transformation is shaping the customer experience in the sectors that you either work in or the sectors that you serve. So let me start this with Nicola. Nicola, if you can talk about that, okay, how is digital transformation shaping the customer experience in the telecom sector, perhaps, and in the financial sector as well, as you've been working for the Orange Money division?
Thank you for the invitation, and welcome on board. Actually, with the past few years, you can see easily that the customers are fastly moving and learning a lot with all the social media interaction and the nationwide or internet-wide activities that we're having. So the demand and the need for going digital was a must, actually, and is a must currently for telecom operators. We're in a fast track, I would say, to serve the demand needed for customers in an easy and simple way. Customers are now looking for anything that is simple, fast, without any hassle and without any difficulties to see, which is being seen easily when you go and access or browse around on any of the GAFA or even Netflix platforms. So within the telecom, I would say, field and even the money side, there's a high need, and as part of that, we're running the digital transformation program, or as we'll say, it's more than an initiative here in Orange Jordan to accommodate that and to, I would say, deliver the needed and fulfill the thirst or demand for digital transformation for our customers and our employees. It's not anymore, I would say, commodity. It's something that we need to be doing as a norm, if I'm using the right word, maybe. It's not something that you'll be applying and then stopping. No, it will become the norm. It will be like any other product that you'll be providing as a telco operator. So hopefully we'll be succeeding in that. We started a journey, yet a lot to be done.
Perfect. Thanks for the elaborate answer, Nicola. Let's move to Arwa. Arwa, you've been working in the logistics and transportation industry. So if you can share your thoughts on how digital transformation is revamping the customer experience in the logistics space. So while Arwa fixes her mic, let me ask the question to Jen, perhaps first, and then we'll come back to Arwa. So Jen, if you can share about the education space across schools and corporates and so on, what are the changes that's happening because of the digital transformation?
Sure. Thank you for that, Paratosh. So we all know that because of technology, a lot of different sectors now are able to continue to provide goods and services to customers. Which makes their lives more of this customer a lot more convenient than decades ago. So imagine decades ago, how are we doing the things that we're doing now? So there are numerous transactions that can be done online now, from transportation to education, to reservations to hotels, which we all miss. I know that can be done online now, and we can order food and purchase things online, different items. Even doctor's consultation can now be done online. And if you probably notice how we also have apps for almost everything. You notice that? Almost everything that you need, you have an app. Even for education, there are a lot of apps for education now that can be used by students and teachers. But what really makes the customer experience change a whole lot, especially in this time of pandemic, is that it helps us a lot to easily share or serve our clients, even if there's a pandemic. In the e-learning industry, for example, we are able to provide customers with learning platform, learning management system that allows for training of employees of a specific organization to continue, which we usually do face-to-face, but now it's kind of like limited and it's not really that safe yet to go back to face-to-face training. A good customer experience is mainly brought about by good customer service also. So we need to make sure that our employees are properly trained and that they continue to get their training and access to content that will provide them with knowledge that they need to serve with their clients. And not only that, not only internal training, this also allowed a lot of service providers, okay, to provide their own customers with training. For example, we have clients whose nature of business is to provide tangible items and the business-to-business model that requires them that requires our customers to learn how to use those products, for example. So with this new technology or a technology that we can use for training, they are able to provide their clients a training that they need. So through a learning management system, for example, they are able to provide continuous trainings for these clients despite the current situation. And I believe that that brings a really good customer experience for everybody. And that's how digital transformation is reshaping our customer experience. We're all customers and we're all experiencing that.
Certainly that has become an instrumental part of our lives, e-learning, especially the ones with kids. Ahmed, moving on to you, I understand, see the digital transformation happening across a variety of sectors. So what are your thoughts on this, on how digital transformation is impacting the customer experience?
First, Paratosh, Greg, and audience sponsors and organizer, thank you for the lovely event. And Jen, my team and I are large consumer of LinkedIn, Udemy, Coursera, looking forward consuming your products. I love the question, and love the question for the fact you're talking about digital transformation. It's not about emerging technology. It's not about how cool technology is how the business actually improving a current state, or maybe creating different revenue stream, or maybe branching out to a new scope, and maybe avoiding what I call mass extinction. So digital transformation is something that's very important. And Dr. David Rogers of Columbia Business School mentioned 5 domains where digital transformation is impacting it. At the center is customer, right? And there is a competition, data, innovation, and value, but at the center is the customer. In Dell, we serve different sectors. It's not the IT only. We serve public, private, FSI, telecom, and other sectors. And over the years, we have observed market forces changing, where the customer is no longer a passive consumer of a product, that you create one product and you push it to the market, or maybe a target for mass communication. Their expectation has changed. And what amplifies the customer impact is basically the notion of the network. They are interconnected in social media. And if you look at the marketing theories, the value of the network is the square of the interconnected users in that network. Think about how many platforms we have and how many users are interconnected and what the value of that network is. Now, we listen to many people are talking about the customer journey, listen to SAP, and after that, Informatica and Gen. And that customer journey, whether you start from awareness all the way to turning your customer to customer advocacy, what we call it in Dell, path to value or path to purchase, behavior of the customer has changed. Expectation has changed dramatically and forever. So the first one is accessibility. I need things now and right now. Very simple, like Nicola mentioned, easy. I want it now. I want to access it now, and that should be easy. And what we're doing in Dell, we're doing it at the consumer side and the enterprise side. At the consumer, you know, the laptops, how you consume it, and even with the corporates, how you onboard these laptops. But at the enterprise side, we're creating the notion of multi-cloud. We have one pane of a glass where you access the on-prem, off-prem in one single pane of the glass. Customer expect also engagement. I want to be part of what you're doing, part of the content that you're creating. Think about Dropbox. Sometimes Dropbox, they took that into further improvement, where they actually showed the customer product before the invention. And they got a lot of ideas about the product, and then they launched the Dropbox. What we're doing in Dell Demo Center, go to Demo Center and access any product that you want, try it, test it, virtually. It's a virtual product. You can test it and look at VMware, hands-on labs. You can log into the console, try all the features that you want. So I'm engaging the customer in that perspective. The third thing is customization. I think that's the most known thing about Dell, which is the mass customization. When Michael Dell started his company, the mass customization, which people studied in the MBA, but the mass customization also, I want the personalization on the portal. I want the personal, maybe recommendation engine. And all of that is powered by machine learning, AI, ML, and data ops, that perspective. One critical part, and the fourth one, co-creation, collaboration.